Hey everybody, I'm actually coming in before this video takes off because I actually filmed the majority of this video a few days ago before Trisha was posting all these positive affirmation videos and the new episode of their podcast on their My Chemical Imbalance channel. I figured I would just release this video anyway because I had already done so much work on it, and yeah, I just wanted to add this little extra bit in, so I hope you enjoyed the video, and then I will come back in the end to talk a little bit about what continued on after what I filmed. Enjoy! Oh no, Trisha Paytas said they're not going to be doing My Chemical Imbalance podcast anymore, and the world breathes a heavy sigh of relief. What's up everybody, it is Lo, Beauty Demon, and we are back to talk about more internet BS, specifically Trisha Paytas, because I just find them really fascinating, and I always want to know what they're up to. Before we get into this, if you have not already, please don't forget to like and subscribe, and hit the bell icon so you get a notification every time I post. Also, do not send anybody discussing this video any hate, negativity, nothing like that. These are just my thoughts, my opinions, based on what I am seeing on the internet. So if you have something to say, go ahead and just shoot it down in the comments below. That's what they're there for. Now let's get into Trisha Paytas' demise of their podcast. Honestly, I did find these podcasts kind of insightful, more so to where Trisha Paytas' mind was at when they would make certain statements or post on other channels or other platforms. And, you know, Trisha inevitably always puts their foot in their mouth on these podcasts because they're an hour long and they're pretty much unedited. There are some things that they could be editing out. What I've always found most interesting about the fact that Trisha does these podcasts and then has all these other channels that they post on and their TikTok and everything is Trisha essentially is creating like timestamps, because Trisha does always have very specific looks and bulk films videos across different channels and things on multiple days. So you might see a post from a week ago where they're doing God knows what, and then you see 2 weeks later they've posted a podcast in the exact same outfit and hairstyle. So that also kind of gives me a little thought of like, where was their head at during this podcast? Like for example, there was that 40-minute plus video a few months ago where Trisha was like defending going on Keem's podcast and was like ranting about Ethan and all of that. But then on the same day, Trisha also filmed the 5th episode of their podcast titled Should the Mentally Ill Be on Social Media? Another example of timestamping would be, well, just recently Trisha Paytas posted on their Trish Talks channel a very passive-aggressive video towards Gabby Hanna that will, I'm sure, straight up provoke her to respond. So I feel no sympathy for Trisha in that regard because they straight up are poking the bear in that one. But also Trisha did record a podcast that day and they just recently posted it and it's titled I'm a Manipulative Person. Probably not the time to be posting something with that title, Trisha. And now that Trisha is allegedly not going to be doing this podcast anymore, I thought we could at least take a look at the last couple episodes. I had actually wanted to do videos on several of these podcasts, but then stuff always just started happening and ended up getting pushed to the back burner. So I wanted to look at the last 3 and see what Trisha has to say about all of these crazy topics that they pick. One thing I've always noticed about these podcasts is Trisha speaks very slowly, well, slowly for them anyway, and tries to be as calm as possible. Now, this kind of echoes to me the first James Charles like accountability video that he has since deleted and strikes channels for using, where they speak very quiet and calm and more even toned to kind of convey the message that what they're saying is important and we really need to like listen, and they're being very serious and real and authentic. As we start going through this, we'll find out that that is not the case with Trisha. I mean, like I said, this podcast is called I'm a Manipulative Person. So I thought we would dive into at least the last 2 or 3 episodes of Trisha's podcast because there have been some clips that have surfaced, like for example, this one.
And just like everyone's like, you weren't diagnosed with schizophrenia. It's the same way I wasn't really diagnosed with borderline. I'd ask every therapist, do I have borderline personality? They're like, well, you have traits of it. Well, what does that mean? Is that a yes? Is that a no?
And this is from the episode Parasocial Relationships, where Trisha spends the good part of 54 minutes talking about how positive they can be. Then Trisha starts to use examples of when they would social climb on MySpace. But Trisha used MySpace to stalk and social climb their way through Hollywood to get to Quentin Tarantino, because Trisha Paytas had a parasocial relationship with Quentin Tarantino, and Trisha thought if they were able to get close enough to Tarantino that his intense obsession would match theirs. And Trisha did end up meeting Quentin Tarantino and getting a picture with him, but obviously it didn't pan out how Trisha thought it would. But Trisha paints that as a positive. I mean, because Trisha did also talk about how they used Eli Roth, the director, to try and meet Quentin Tarantino, and it seemed like Eli Roth was kind of aware of what was going on, but was just like, fine, whatever, they're just a fan, I'm just gonna let them come in. But the weird thing is that Trisha is painting this as a positive aspect of parasocial relationships when this is stalker behavior. And Trisha does go on to cite examples of when parasocial relationships do go horribly wrong, discussing a few instances where the stalking situation becomes fatal for the celebrity. But the parasocial relationship episode really just confirmed to me what we pretty much already knew, and it's that Trisha's fake as fuck. Trisha just used social media to social climb to get to where they are now, which is, why I'm not surprised, really. Also, because of what Trisha was saying, I did a little bit more of a deeper dive into parasocial relationships and more of the studies and research that have gone along with it. I tried to look up more academic articles as opposed to just things on regular websites, things that actual scientists have written. One thing I found very interesting is everything that Trisha describes, whether it's good or bad, falls into the third category of parasocial relationships, which is called borderline pathological. Now, borderline pathological is where somebody will spend exorbitant amounts of money, sometimes even to the point where they themselves are in debt, will actually go through steps to figure out what's going on in that person's everyday, non-public, private life, try to befriend friends and family around them in hopes of getting close to them. And then yes, in some instances, those do become dangerous and fatal situations, but that's not necessarily the case. But everything that Trisha describes, whether it's good or bad, it still falls into the category of borderline pathological. But like I said, Trisha just confirmed that they're fake as fuck in this one. Just like through everything else and everything we've seen online of Trisha, we just know Trisha is fake. Then the next episode was the I'm a manipulative person. And this episode, Trisha's in a mood, obviously. So the manipulative persons episode was filmed the same day as the Gabby Hanna Trish Talks thing. I keep wanting to call it TikTok, but we already know that Trisha's in a mood because Trisha's had Gabby Hanna on the brain. So I don't know if Trisha filmed this and then that video. In my head, I just called the Gabby Hanna bait video. Honestly, Trisha is just baiting Gabby Hanna. So I don't know which one she filmed first, but you can see where her mindset is. I know she also did one of her first live streams. It may have been her second members only live stream that day, because once again, Trisha is creating timestamps with these looks. I don't know if it's intentional or not, but that's what they're doing. But yeah, in this episode, Trisha does start off very passive-aggressive and seems to have a visible animosity towards the viewers. Mostly this podcast is trying to validate being manipulative, that Trisha says they are hardwired to be. We'll dive more into that. But also Trisha says pretty early on that mental illness is an excuse for bad behavior. No. Mental illness is not an excuse for bad behavior. Bad behavior can be a result of mental illness for sure, but it doesn't wipe the slate clean if you do something that harms somebody else, even though you are mentally ill and your mental illness is what kind of caused you to have that reaction. You still are being held accountable for what your actions were. Trisha says they are hardwired to be manipulative, and they're cognitively aware of this, and they're not exactly taking the steps to try and fix this. They know that they do that, and they know that they're manipulative, and they can sometimes tell they're not taking the steps to actually stop being a manipulative person, which is pretty scary. Trisha acknowledges that they need to change this behavior, but I don't really see Trisha taking the steps to stop that. I even made a note that I'm literally 2 minutes in on this podcast, and this is all that Trisha has said already. Once again, Trisha also says they're not officially diagnosed, which I do want to say, Trisha says in that clip, they never received a sheet of paper that had their diagnosis on it. I mean, I never received any sort of sheet of paper that had my mental diagnosis on it. However, I was always very engaged with what my treatment was and what the diagnosis was. And yeah, in mental illness, it can be hard to give a clear diagnosis, especially if somebody is dealing with a lot of different things. And the field of psychology is an ever-changing and ever-evolving field, because we're always learning new things about the brain. Regardless of like if Trisha's been officially diagnosed with BPD or schizophrenia or whatever, this just shows that Trisha is not really involved with their treatment. Whenever I'm given a medication, I ask the doctor, why do you want me to take this? What does this do? What is this? So I have a clear understanding of why they want me to be taking this drug in the first place. So that way I have a clear idea of why they want me taking this medication in the first place, what are our expected outcomes, and what do I need to watch out for if I have negative side effects, especially when you're taking psychotropic drugs. If you even have a milligram of dosage off, it can have catastrophic events. Like it can actually make somebody severely who maybe wasn't at that place. So this just shows like Trisha is just not really involved with like their treatment and diagnosis. Like it's not taking this as seriously as we all want them to. Oh yeah, Trish Skin was a sponsor of this video.
Go pick up a package, clear your skin. And then we'll work on clearing the demons in your head.
What? And then for 15 minutes, Trisha actually gives us a lesson on what healthy emotions are, which is rich coming from Trisha Paytas. And then she actually shows us her workbook, which I think has made other appearances before. This workbook is for DBT therapy. The T stands for therapy. Good for Trisha, multitasking, working, doing homework, making content, making money, getting mentally well, all at the same time. Trisha also shouts out Katie Morton, you know, the YouTube therapist that told Jaclyn Glenn to 5150 Eugenia Cooney, and then also walked her through how to do it. And then once Eugenia got out of treatment, Katie sat down with her and talked about how horribly traumatic it must have been to have her close friends 5150 her. Yeah, that YouTube therapist. And trust me, there is a slew of other shit we could go on and on about, but that might be another video for another time. Trisha does shout out Joel Osteen a lot in like a video, but also on Twitter a lot. Trisha needs better role models. And Trisha gives us an emotional recap of their week. In this recap of their week, I don't even know what they're talking about after a while. I watched this podcast at regular speed 3 times. And every time Trisha gets to the emotional recap, I get lost and I lose interest because I have no idea what they're talking about. Trisha is talking about a photo shoot, the manic highs and lows that come from shooting, and then like overeating, and then like taking a nap, and how they should feel like crap, but they don't feel like crap because they did a shoot the other day, but then like they didn't want to do the shoot because they were having all these like emotional issues. And I don't know what Trisha is talking about anymore. Can somebody make like a graph or something? Trisha talks about like using sleep to escape their problems, which just made me think of this meme that iNabber posted the other day, like literally just popped right into my head. Then all of a sudden, out of the blue, Trisha defends Shane Dawson against allegations, saying that he never texted minors. Now Trisha, it is shown that he had inappropriate chats with people on Tiny Chat with young girls, asking them to do inappropriate things, making inappropriate jokes with and at them. And then there's also video proof of him in person with minors saying inappropriate things to them, teaching kids how to have sex. Like, I feel like people are justified in thinking he's gross and creepy. So all that aside, it's very odd that Trisha was defending him in this video. But then, and this is before Shane actually came back recently too. So this video was probably filmed like a month ago, and Trisha was already starting to feel like, maybe I should forgive Shane, maybe I should. Because now that he's back, Trisha did have a live stream where they were like, I believe in second, third, fourth, and fifth, and sixth, seventh chances. You know, I feel like anybody can redeem themselves. Which is funny because Trisha was the final nail in the coffin for Shane Dawson's cancellation. And now here's Trisha in their own Shane Dawson style cancellation and is hoping like, maybe I can get a friend back. And you know, Trisha needs guests to their wedding. Trisha just flip-flops like crazy, but what do we expect? Trisha has made this entire podcast series to show us how manipulative and fake they are. Something that was buried deep in this I'm a Manipulative Person podcast is Trisha fully admitting they are not consistent with this DBT therapy that they talk about all the time. You know, that they constantly are going to and that they're doing the workbooks all the time. Trisha says they're not consistent with this. And if you're not really putting in the consistent work, you're not going to see the growth. Many people in my comments and other places on the internet have said they don't even believe that Trisha is in therapy at all. I do believe that Trisha is in therapy. You can just buy this workbook off of Amazon though. I am just gonna say that. But I don't think Trisha is fully focused on getting well, because if Trisha gets well and doesn't act controversial and chaotic, Trisha's not gonna make money. So now Trisha is able to exploit their crazy antics as mental illness. And in this episode, you can see that Trisha is still kind of stuck on the like going on mom's basement, because Trisha does bring up FaZe Banks and Keemstar and hashing things out on their podcast, which we listened to that podcast, Trisha. You didn't hold anybody accountable for anything. You didn't take anybody to task. You guys just shit talked Ethan for like 20 minutes. And then Trisha spends the rest of the podcast just recapping every time they've ever been manipulative to a partner. Basically what I got from this is Trisha is hardwired to be manipulative and not sorry, because that's just how they're made. And finally, to wrap up this alleged farewell to the My Chemical Imbalance podcast, we jump into the episode going off my meds. I am already really nervous about this title. Trisha starts off in a very somber mood. Now, timestamping this video a week before Trisha posted on one of their main channels a video where they're wearing this same outfit and it's like a wedding haul or something. Trisha says they don't have motivation to do much of anything anymore, so this episode will probably be the last episode. Trisha also has their workbook, you know, out and ready for them, because at this point really the workbook is like the co-host of this. Trisha is using this workbook for content, and that's what the majority of this episode is Trisha literally just doing their workbook. And in about 2.5 minutes into this video, Trisha lets us know that they're in a codependent relationship. But don't worry, it's good for them. No, codependent relationships are not good. They are not healthy. It is not healthy for you to put all of your self-worth and value and confidence and happiness in another person. Trisha says this relationship does provide stability for them, but that is very different than a stable, healthy, supportive relationship. Obviously, I want everybody to have loving, supportive partners, but codependency is not something that's necessarily built entirely out of supporting love. Especially if both people are dependent, that's a recipe for toxic disaster. Codependency really only holds the people that are in it back, because then you're not able to learn and grow and change and morph. I'm all about self-actualization, and it's impossible to realize who you really are when you put all of your self-worth and value in another person's idea of you. So I really hope that Trisha and Moses are working through this in couples therapy, because that is going to be the only place that they can take care of this. And we've seen in a few videos that Trisha is becoming all about the positive affirmations, but like really it just reminds me of this.
I'm going to do a terrific show today, and I'm going to help people because I'm good enough, I'm smart enough, and doggone it, people like me.
Anyway, before Trisha is allowed to go out into the real world, they have to do their homework, workbook, whatever. And Trisha point blank says, I don't know what words mean. I should go to classes more. Another admission that Trisha does not go to this therapy that they keep telling us about all the time. Trisha does not understand what is in this workbook, but has also had multiple episodes of this podcast where they're trying to teach us what's in the workbook. Also, have you finished The Secret yet? To be honest, I feel like this podcast series was really just like Trisha trying to prove that they're a good person to maybe themselves more than anything. I think Trisha thought that this podcast series would put them in some sort of like sympathetic light, when in all actuality, it's just given people more ammunition to look at and pick apart, myself included. They're using positive affirmations and this workbook to monetize their mental illness for us all. And Trisha's really trying to drive home that they're a good person, you guys. Like, I think maybe Trisha has a good heart, but Trisha is manipulative, like they said. Now, I'll be honest, I got bored listening to this podcast too, because it is Trisha actually reading the fucking workbook out to us. I'm not kidding. It was like when I used to teach Zoom calls, like back in the beginning of the pandemic when I didn't really know how to teach a Zoom call. And that's boring as hell. I don't want to watch that, especially somebody who doesn't even know what they're reading to me or understand it. So I got bored listening to her read her workbook, and I started scrolling the comments, and I found a couple gems that I wanted to read to you. I liked this one. Notice how she never talks about what her therapist tells her. It's almost like she doesn't go to therapy and solely utilizes these workbooks. You shouldn't be thankful for being in a codependent relationship with your partner. The literal definition for codependent relationship is a kind of dysfunctional relationship where one person is a caretaker and the other person takes advantage. You want love? Stop looking for it in other people and at the expense of other people, and love yourself first, Trisha. Then somebody said, how have you changed? You just did a video mocking Gabby. Your ramblings are equivalent to that of a toddler. And this one is a great one. I think it's very important for you to get a handle on these techniques yourself. Telling, teaching, explaining to others is not the level you're at. Back up and get a handle on your own emotions before you try to talk to others about it. We don't need to know this shit, Trish. You do. So, yep, at the beginning of this podcast, Trisha said this was gonna be their last one. However, they just recently did a members only live stream where Trisha said they will be copywriting the My Chemical Imbalance logo for merch. If you're not going to do it anymore, then you wouldn't need merch. So I feel like Trisha is probably going to do this again. Hi, me again. I told you I would be back. So as I was editing all of this footage, Trisha was posting their affirmation videos, and I kept filming like little blurbs, like updating it, but I'm just going to condense all of it. Basically, Trisha's new MO is they're going to be talking about astrology, Joel Osteen, manifestations, crystals, law of attraction, and just keep projecting to themselves and everybody that they're a good person. That pretty much just sums everything up. I mean, I did make little things that went more in depth, but I just figured I would just lump this in here because then Trisha has actually posted not like a full length version of their podcast, more like a condensed one, because their episodes are usually 50 something minutes long. And this one was only 24 minutes. But I think I might do a whole separate video on that because some of the things that Trisha said were pretty interesting in it. Also, Trisha has done a TikTok where they said they were happy they are canceled. So I guess we have Shane Dawson to thank for this new outlook because that's actually what Shane said in his video as well. And yeah, that kind of just sums it up real quick. This video ended up being delayed because I kept like thinking, do I have to film more? Do I have to film more for this? And then I was just like, you know what? This is so fucking annoying. I'm not doing this anymore. So thank you guys so much for watching and being patient with me. I appreciate each and every one of you that are watching and liking my videos and subscribing to my channel. It's so freaking crazy. Honestly, you guys, I don't really say this often in my videos. I really appreciate it, and I'm so freaking shocked. And yeah, I'm just really excited that you guys are all here watching me and joining me. So anyway, you guys, thank you so much. I will see you guys next time. Laters. Bye.